The scorching Arizona sun beat down mercilessly as Eliza Jane stumbled along the newly laid railroad tracks, her water canteen empty, her hopes fading with each labored step. The year was 1876, and the promise of a new life in Tucson now seemed like a cruel joke as she felt her consciousness slipping away. Eliza had fled Philadelphia 3 weeks ago, leaving behind a shattered engagement and a father who had gambled away the family fortune. The stagecoach that was supposed to carry her the final leg of her journey had been attacked by bandits 2 days prior. She alone had escaped into the scrubland, wandering lost, until she stumbled upon these railroad tracks, her last hope for civilization. Her vision blurred as dark spots danced before her eyes. The heat was unbearable, searing through her layers of clothing despite the makeshift sunshade she'd fashioned from her bonnet. With one final, desperate attempt to move forward, Eliza's knees buckled beneath her, and she collapsed into the dust beside the railroad tracks. Moments or hours later, she couldn't tell the thundering of hooves penetrated her hazy consciousness. A shadow fell across her face, blocking the punishing sun. Strong arms gathered her limp body from the ground. "You're safe now," a deep voice assured her as she was lifted against a solid chest. Those were the last words Eliza heard before surrendering completely to darkness. When she awoke, Eliza found herself in an unfamiliar room. Rough-hewn wooden walls surrounded her, and she lay atop a simple but clean bed. A damp cloth rested on her forehead, and her parched throat had been soothed somewhat. She attempted to sit up but found her strength hadn't yet returned. "Easy there," came the same deep voice she'd heard before losing consciousness. "You've had quite an ordeal." Eliza turned her head to find a man sitting in a chair beside the bed. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-bronzed skin that spoke of years under the western sky. His eyes were a startling blue against his weathered face, and a well-worn cowboy hat rested on his knee. "Where am I?" Eliza managed to whisper. "My ranch, about 5 miles from Dry Creek Station," he replied, reaching for a cup of water on the bedside table. "I'm Wade Barrett. Found you passed out by the tracks while I was checking on some stray cattle." He helped her sit up slightly and held the cup to her lips. Eliza drank gratefully, the cool water a blessed relief. "Thank you, Mr. Barrett," she said when she'd finished. "I'm Eliza Jane. I was on my way to Tucson when bandits attacked our stagecoach. I've been walking for 2 days trying to find help." Wade's expression darkened. "The Saunders gang, most likely. They've been hitting coaches all through the territory." He set the cup down. "You're lucky to be alive, Miss Jane." "Just Eliza, please," she said. "And yes, I believe luck was with me when you happened along." A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Well, Eliza, you need rest. My housekeeper, Mrs. Flores, will look in on you. I've sent word to the marshal about the stagecoach attack. Once you're stronger, we can figure out your next steps." As Wade stood to leave, Eliza noticed for the first time that her traveling dress had been replaced with a simple cotton nightgown. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "Mrs. Flores tended to you," Wade explained, noting her distress. "Your clothes were filthy and torn. They're being washed now." Eliza nodded her thanks, too exhausted to feel properly scandalized. As her rescuer left the room, she sank back against the pillows, wondering what fate had in store for her now. Over the next few days, Eliza regained her strength under Mrs. Flores's attentive care. The older woman was a widow who had worked for Wade Barrett for 5 years, managing his household with quiet efficiency. From her, Eliza learned that Wade had come to Arizona Territory after the Civil War, where he'd fought for the Union. He'd built his cattle ranch from nothing and was respected throughout the territory for his fair dealings and strong work ethic. On her 4th day at the ranch, Eliza felt well enough to join Wade for supper in the small but comfortable dining room. She wore a borrowed dress that Mrs. Flores had altered to fit her slender frame. "You're looking much improved," Wade observed as she took her seat across from him. "I feel like myself again, thanks to your kindness," Eliza replied. "I don't know how I can ever repay you," Wade waved away her gratitude. No need for repayment. Anyone would have done the same. I'm not so certain of that, Eliza said softly. There are many who would take advantage of a woman alone. Something flashed in Wade's eyes, anger perhaps, at the thought of such men, but he merely nodded and turned the conversation to her plans. The marshal sent word that they found the stagecoach. No survivors among the other passengers, I'm afraid. His voice was gentle, recognizing the horror of what she'd escaped. Your luggage is gone. Do you have family in Tucson who can help you? Eliza stared down at her plate. No. I was going to Tucson to take a position as a schoolteacher. I don't know anyone there, just had a letter offering the job. She hesitated before adding, I left Philadelphia rather suddenly. There's nothing for me to return to. Wade studied her thoughtfully. As it happens, Dry Creek is in need of a teacher. Our last one left to get married 2 months ago. The children have been without schooling since then. Hope flared in Eliza's heart. Are you suggesting I might apply for the position? More than suggest, Wade said. I'm on the town council. If you're interested, I could take you into town tomorrow to meet with the mayor. It's a small place, nothing like Philadelphia, but decent folks trying to build something lasting. For the first time since the stagecoach attack, Eliza felt a genuine smile form. I would be most grateful for the introduction, Mr. Barrett. Wade, he corrected her with a small smile of his own. If you're going to be our schoolteacher, we should dispense with formalities. The following morning, Wade harnessed his horses to a wagon and helped Eliza climb up to the seat beside him. Mrs. Flores had found a bonnet to protect Eliza from the sun, and despite her borrowed clothes, she felt presentable enough to meet the town officials. As they drove, Wade pointed out landmarks and told her about the area. His ranch was one of the larger ones, running 3,000 head of cattle with the help of 8 cowboys who lived in a bunkhouse near the main house. The railroads changed everything, he explained as they followed alongside the tracks that had led him to her. Used to take weeks to drive cattle to market. Now we can load them on cattle cars right at Dry Creek Station. Is that why you were checking the tracks when you found me? Eliza asked. Wade glanced at her, then back to the road. Partly. Also heard rumors of track damage. Some of the smaller ranchers aren't happy about the railroad. They think it favors operations like mine. And does it? It benefits those who can adapt, he said frankly. Change isn't easy for everyone, but it's inevitable. Eliza nodded, thinking of her own circumstances. Yes, I'm beginning to understand that quite well. Dry Creek proved to be a dusty but growing settlement with a main street boasting a general store, hotel, saloon, church, and several other businesses. People nodded respectfully to Wade as he guided the wagon through town, curious glances directed at Eliza. Mayor Jeffries was a portly man with an impressive mustache who seemed delighted at the prospect of acquiring a schoolteacher from Philadelphia. After reviewing her credentials thankfully, Eliza had kept her letters of reference in her reticule. He offered her the position on the spot. School's been empty too long, he declared. We've got 28 children needing education. Can you start next Monday? I would be honored, Eliza replied, though I have nothing but what I'm wearing. The mayor waved away her concern. The town provides lodging for the teacher in rooms above the schoolhouse. As for necessities, we'll take up a collection. Folks here are generous, especially when it comes to schooling their children. By the time they left the mayor's office, Eliza had secured not only employment, but also promises of donated books, clothes, and household items from several prominent families. The news of her harrowing journey and Wade's rescue had spread quickly, opening hearts and purse strings alike. I can't believe how quickly everything has been resolved, Eliza said as Wade helped her back into the wagon. Yesterday I had nothing, and today I have a future again. Wade's eyes crinkled at the corners as he smiled. Folks out here understand hardship and new beginnings. Most everyone came from somewhere else, looking to start over. He paused, then added more quietly, including me. Before returning to the ranch, Wade took her to the general store where, despite her protests, he purchased her 2 ready-made dresses, undergarments, and other essentials she would need until the town's donations arrived. "Consider it an advance on your first month's teaching," he said when she tried to refuse. "These children need you, Eliza. Let me help you help them." Put that way, she could hardly decline. As the storekeeper's wife helped her select appropriate items, Eliza found herself glancing through the window to where Wade stood outside, talking with some local men. There was something about his quiet strength that made her feel secure for the first time in months. That evening, after returning to the ranch, Eliza sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the desert in hues of gold and crimson. Wade joined her, offering a cup of coffee which she accepted gratefully. "It's beautiful," she said, gesturing toward the horizon. "So different from Philadelphia." Everything there was buildings and smoke and people crowded together. "Do you miss it?" Wade asked, settling into a chair beside her. Eliza considered the question. "I miss what it was before my father's troubles began. We had a good life once, comfortable, respectable." She sipped her coffee. But that world vanished when his gambling debts came due. After that, it was just shame and whispers and false friends disappearing. "And a fiancé?" Wade's question was gentle, but Eliza still felt the sting of betrayal. "Yes, Richard Spencer." She spoke the name without emotion. He made it clear that while he had agreed to marry Eliza Jane with a substantial dowry, he had no interest in Eliza Jane, the penniless daughter of a disgraced businessman. Wade's jaw tightened. "Then he was a fool who didn't deserve you." The simple declaration, delivered with such conviction, brought unexpected tears to Eliza's eyes. She turned away, blinking rapidly to dispel them. "What about you?" she asked, changing the subject. "Have you always been a rancher?" Wade gazed out at the darkening landscape. "No. I was studying law in Boston before the war, had plans to join my father's practice." A shadow crossed his face. "After Gettysburg, I couldn't imagine going back to that life, needed open spaces and sky above me." He shrugged. "Came west with nothing but my horse and what I could carry. Worked as a cowhand, saved every penny, then staked my claim on this land when nobody else wanted it." "You've built something remarkable," Eliza said sincerely. "It's a work in progress," Wade replied, but she could hear the pride in his voice. Over the next few days, as Eliza prepared to move into town and begin teaching, she and Wade fell into an easy companionship. He showed her around the ranch, introduced her to his cowboys, and even taught her to ride Western style after discovering she'd only ridden side saddle in Philadelphia parks. Their conversations ranged from books they'd read to dreams they still harbored. Wade was more educated than most ranchers, and Eliza found herself intellectually stimulated in a way she hadn't expected in the Arizona Territory. For his part, Wade seemed to appreciate having someone who understood references to Shakespeare and could discuss the political questions facing the nation as it celebrated its centennial. The night before Eliza was to move into town, Mrs. Flores prepared a special dinner. The housekeeper had grown fond of Eliza and had spent the day baking her famous apple pie as a farewell gesture. "You will visit often, yes?" Mrs. Flores asked as they ate. "The house has been brighter with you here." "Of course, if I'm welcome," Eliza replied, glancing at Wade. "Always," he said simply, and something in his steady gaze made her heart beat faster. After dinner, Wade asked if she would walk with him to see the new foals in the corral. The evening was mild, with a 3/4 moon providing ample light as they strolled side by side. "I've been thinking," Wade began as they reached the corral where 3 foals frolicked under their mother's watchful eyes. "Dry Creek is only 5 miles from here. I often have business in town. Perhaps I could check on you regularly, make sure you're settling in well." Eliza felt a warm pleasure at his suggestion. "I would like that very much." Wade turned to face her, his expression serious in the moonlight. "Eliza, I know we've known each other just a short time, but I find myself." He hesitated, then continued more firmly. "I find myself thinking about you even when you're in the next room. That's never happened to me before." Eliza's breath caught. "I've been experiencing something similar," she admitted softly. Slowly, giving her every chance to step away, Wade moved closer and raised his hand to gently touch her cheek. "May I?" he whispered. At her nod, he lowered his head and kissed her. It was tender and brief, but Eliza felt it down to her toes. When they parted, she saw her own wonder reflected in his eyes. "I'll come to town often," Wade promised, taking her hand in his. The following morning, Wade drove Eliza to Dry Creek and helped her settle into her new quarters above the schoolhouse. The room was simple but clean, with a bed, dresser, small table with 2 chairs, and a pot-bellied stove. Several women from town had already delivered linens, dishes, and food staples to welcome her. As promised, the town had rallied to provide school supplies and personal necessities. By Sunday evening, Eliza had everything organized for her first day of teaching. Wade had returned to his ranch after making sure she was comfortable, but not before promising to check on her midweek. Monday morning arrived with 28 curious children filing into the schoolhouse, ranging in age from 6 to 16. Many had never had formal schooling before the previous teacher arrived, and Eliza quickly realized she would need to assess each child individually to determine their educational needs. By the end of that first week, Eliza had fallen in love with teaching. Despite the challenges of multiple grade levels in one room, she found the children eager to learn. Most had responsibilities at home on farms or in family businesses, making their dedication to education all the more impressive. Wade, true to his word, had ridden into town Wednesday afternoon, bringing her a basket of fresh vegetables from Mrs. Flores's garden, and staying to help repair a wobbly bookshelf in the schoolhouse. Several mothers had noticed his attentions, and Eliza found herself the subject of friendly curiosity from the town's women. "Mr. Barrett's never shown interest in any local lady before," Mrs. Peterson confided when she brought her twins to school. "He's considered quite a catch, you know. Most eligible bachelor in the county." Eliza tried to downplay the relationship, but she couldn't deny the flutter in her stomach whenever she thought of Wade. Their brief kiss had left her wanting more, yet she was cautious. Her experience with Richard had taught her that a man's intentions weren't always honorable. As October arrived, bringing slightly cooler temperatures, Eliza had settled comfortably into life in Dry Creek. She'd made friends among the townspeople, particularly Sarah Whitmore, the young widow who ran the general store with her father. Sarah was close to Eliza's age and provided welcome female companionship. Wade had established a pattern of visiting town at least twice a week, often timing his errands to coincide with the end of the school day so he could walk Eliza to her quarters. Sometimes he would stay for tea, other times they would stroll through town together, their growing affection becoming common knowledge. "He looks at you like you hung the moon," Sarah teased one afternoon as they watched Wade loading supplies into his wagon across the street. Eliza blushed. "We're just friends. Friends don't ride 5 miles in the rain to bring you chicken soup when you have a cold," Sarah pointed out, referring to Wade's actions the previous week when Eliza had fallen ill. "That man is in love with you, Eliza Jane." The thought both thrilled and frightened her. Was she ready to trust her heart again? And what did she really know about Wade Barrett beyond the kindness he'd shown her? That evening, as they sat on the small balcony outside her rooms watching the town settle into twilight, Eliza found the courage to ask Wade about his past. "You know almost everything about me," she began, "but there are parts of your life you rarely mention. The war, for instance. You said you fought at Gettysburg, but nothing more." Wade was silent for so long that Eliza feared she had offended him. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and controlled. "I was a lieutenant in the 20th Massachusetts. We lost over half our men on the second day at Gettysburg." His hands, usually so steady, trembled slightly. "My best friend died in my arms. After that, I couldn't be the same person who left Boston in '61. Eliza reached across the small table and covered his hand with hers. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked. Wade turned his palm up to clasp her fingers. No, you have a right to know if there's to be something between us, you should know who I am. He met her eyes directly. I came west partly to escape those memories, but they followed me. For years, I barely slept through the night. Building the ranch gave me purpose, but I was hollow inside. And now, Eliza asked softly, a smile gradually transformed his solemn expression. Now I find myself looking forward to each day, especially the days when I see you. The simple sincerity of his words touched Eliza deeply. I feel the same way, she admitted. You make me feel safe in a way I haven't since before my father's troubles began. Wade's expression grew serious again. Eliza, I don't want to rush you. I know you came west to escape your own painful past, but I want you to know that my intentions are honorable. Her heart raced at the implication. Wade, he held up his hand. I'm not proposing, not yet. You deserve time to be certain, to build your own life here first. I just want you to know that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be waiting. Tears pricked at Eliza's eyes, not of sadness but of overwhelming emotion. No man had ever considered her feelings so carefully, had ever put her needs before his own desires. Thank you, she whispered, squeezing his hand. As autumn deepened, bringing occasional frost to the early mornings, Eliza's feelings for Wade continued to grow. They established a routine of Sunday dinners at his ranch, where Mrs. Flores would outdo herself preparing feasts and then conveniently find reasons to leave them alone afterward. During one such Sunday in late November, Wade suggested a ride to show Eliza a special place on his property. They saddled horses after dinner and rode for about 30 minutes until they crested a small ridge overlooking a hidden valley. A spring-fed stream cut through the center, surrounded by cottonwood trees whose leaves had turned golden with the season. It's beautiful, Eliza breathed as they dismounted. I had no idea this was here. Few people do, Wade replied, leading her to a flat rock beside the stream. I found it my first year on the ranch. I come here to think, to remember what matters. They sat side by side, listening to the water's gentle music. Wade seemed lost in thought, and Eliza was content to enjoy the peaceful moment until he was ready to speak. I received a letter yesterday, he said finally, from Boston. My father is ill, not critically, but enough that he's considering retiring from his law practice. Will you go to him? Eliza asked, surprised by the stab of fear she felt at the thought of Wade leaving, even temporarily. He turned to face her. That depends on you, on me. I don't understand. Wade took both her hands in his. Eliza, I've been patient because I wanted to give you time, but I can't wait any longer. I love you. I think I've loved you since I found you by those tracks and held you in my arms. Eliza's heart soared at his declaration. I love you too, Wade. I've been afraid to admit it, afraid to trust these feelings after what happened with Richard, but I can't deny it any longer. Relief and joy spread across Wade's features. Then marry me, Eliza Jane. Be my wife, my partner in everything. Come with me to Boston if I need to go, or stay here and wait for my return, whatever you wish. Just say you'll be mine. Yes, she answered without hesitation. Yes, I'll marry you, Wade Barrett. He gathered her into his arms then, kissing her with all the pent-up passion of months of restraint. Eliza responded with equal fervor, knowing that this was right, that this man was nothing like Richard. Wade loved her for herself, not for what she could bring him. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Wade reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. I've been carrying this for weeks, he admitted, opening the pouch to reveal a gold ring set with a modest diamond. It was my mother's. I had Sarah at the general store size it smaller based on a ribbon measurement Mrs. Flores took from your gloves. As he slid the ring onto her finger, Eliza felt tears of happiness spill down her cheeks. It's perfect, she whispered. They were married 2 weeks later in the Dry Creek Church, with the entire town turning out for the celebration. Mrs. Flores cried happily throughout the ceremony, and Eliza's students presented her with a handmade quilt as a wedding gift, each child contributing a square. The school board agreed to let Eliza continue teaching until the end of the term in December, after which a new teacher would be sought. In the meantime, she divided her time between her duties in town during the week and her new home at the ranch on weekends. Marriage to Wade was everything Eliza had hoped for and more. Their partnership extended beyond the domestic sphere. Wade valued her opinions on ranch business, and she found herself learning quickly about cattle, land management, and the economics of the beef trade. In turn, she brought culture and refinement to the ranch house, ordering books and music from back east and organizing occasional gatherings for neighbors. Word eventually came that Wade's father had recovered sufficiently that a journey to Boston was unnecessary, though they made plans to visit the following year. For now, they were content building their life together in Arizona territory. Spring arrived with new calves, verdant grazing lands, and news that thrilled them both. Eliza was expecting a child in late autumn. Wade's joy knew no bounds, and he immediately began planning additions to the house and discussing names. "If it's a boy, perhaps we could name him after your father," Eliza suggested one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, a habit they had maintained since her first days at the ranch. Wade's hand rested protectively on her still flat stomach. "William would be a fine name." "And if it's a girl, Elizabeth, after my mother," Eliza replied, "though we'd call her Beth to avoid confusion." "William or Beth Barrett," Wade tested the names aloud, "strong names for our child." As Eliza leaned against her husband's sturdy shoulder, she marveled at the journey that had brought her here. From the desperate young woman who had fainted in the dust beside the railroad tracks to a beloved wife, respected teacher, and soon-to-be mother, her life had transformed completely in less than a year. "What are you thinking about?" Wade asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. "About that day you found me," she answered honestly. "How close I came to dying out there in the desert, how different my life would have been if you hadn't come along those tracks at that exact moment." Wade's arm tightened around her. "I've thought about that too. What if I'd chosen a different route that day? What if I'd been 10 minutes later?" "Perhaps it was meant to be," Eliza suggested. "Perhaps we were always destined to find each other." "I choose to believe that," Wade said firmly, "because I can't imagine my life without you in it, Eliza Barrett. You brought light back into my world when I'd forgotten what it looked like." As the sun's final rays painted the western sky in brilliant hues, Eliza silently thanked whatever fate or providence had guided Wade to her that fateful day. From desperation had come salvation, from chance meeting had grown abiding love, and from the harsh desert soil had blossomed a future more beautiful than she had ever dared to dream. "You're safe now," Wade had promised as he lifted her from the dust. Looking back, Eliza realized those words had been prophetic. In his arms, she had found not just physical safety but the security of true partnership, the certainty of being valued for herself alone, and the profound peace that comes with being exactly where one belongs. Together, they would face whatever challenges the frontier might bring, strengthened by a love born in the most unexpected of circumstances, and nurtured through honesty, respect, and unwavering commitment. Their story, which had begun with a rescue beside lonely railroad tracks, would continue through the years ahead, a testament to the healing power of love and the endless possibilities of new beginnings.